Hey, friends, welcome to today's podcast. I am so excited. I have a special guest here that has written a book, and I read it and I devoured it in 2 days. And if you know me, you know I do not read books, but I actually read this book. I didn't even listen to it. You can listen to it, but I read it, and it was called Hope Rises by KB. And so she is here. She's going to tell us a little bit about her story, and we're going to talk a little bit about betrayal, trauma, and other things that go along with finding out your spouse of 40 years has been lying and cheating on you and living this double life. So thanks so much for being here, Cass.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate the opportunity.
Tell us just anything about you that you want us to know, and then maybe just a little snippet. I know it's a lot, so that's why people are going to have to go read your book. What do you want us to know about your story?
This all came to light in 2020, just before COVID. And my husband and I had been married for 40 years. So, yeah, I'm a retiree kind of person. We had, I'm not going to say a perfect marriage. I think it was an adequate marriage. We got along. We had a lot of things in common. We loved to do the same things. We had 5 children and had struggled through going to school together. And we moved a lot due to his career, even international moves. So we'd had a lot of adventures together, a lot of trials as well. But we just celebrated our 40th anniversary. He had some custom jewelry made for me for the occasion and went out on Facebook and Instagram and mentioned how I had blessed his life in 40,000 ways. And so I thought we had a pretty decent marriage. It was January of 2020. And one day my son called me, and the weekend before, it was a Monday, but the weekend before, my husband and I spent the whole weekend together. The whole weekend, gone out to dinner. We'd gone to a home and garden show. We just spent the whole weekend together. And on the next day, on Monday, my husband worked out of town most of the time. So he was out of town on Monday. And my son called. My son, most of my children are married now with children. And he called me, said, "Hey, can I come over?" And I said, "Yeah." But it was weird because it was dinner time and he wanted to pop over. He came with his 2 other sisters who were in town. And I thought, okay, something's up here. And they sat me down and they said, "Mom, on Friday, Dad was caught at a strip club." And I thought, what? We're a very religious family. It's not something he would do ever. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, he told me he was going to be late coming home that night. He was out coming in from out of town and he had this perfectly reasonable excuse why the traffic and he came home but I thought there's no way. It was totally normal. And for many people, they might think, okay, it's a strip club. That's not the end of the world. But my kids had already figured they'd met together several times over that weekend. They'd figured this out. And they thought if he goes to a strip club in town when he works out of town, this guy's probably an addict. They
Yeah,
figured
what
it
is he
all out.
doing out of town? If
Yeah,
he's willing to do it,
exactly.
possibility of seeing someone he knows or
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And so this, of course, I wasn't realizing any of this. I'm just going, what? This doesn't make any sense. So anyway, I was just in shock. And so I said, let's call your dad. Let's call him and put him on speaker. And he just denied. And my kids were just dying because this is their dad who they loved, who they thought was their moral standard bearer because he always was a good dad and always taught them right from wrong. And they're just dying because they know he's lying. Anyway, so I said, you need to come home, take some days off work and come home. So anyway, they left me there, wrote me a list. They said, Mom, you asked Dad all these questions because we need to know. They had already figured it out. They go, this guy's an addict. So he came home and we went over this list. Are you seeing prostitutes? Do you go to massage parlors? And it was like, yes on everything. Yes, yes. So he was honest. Well,
Which is amazing that he even admitted to it, but
not with the numbers. Later on, I had
oh
a
yeah.
counselor. Yeah, the counselor told me later, she says, any number he gave you, put a 0 at the end. And she
Yes.
said, it's always about 10% of what they really do. So anyway, I was in such shock because we'd been married for 40 years. And as it turned out, this had gone back from the very beginning. He'd been doing strip clubs and massage parlors from the very, very beginning of our marriage.
And so did you ever suspect anything, or was it because he was just mostly probably doing it when he was out of town for work?
It's really interesting. I knew he had some emotional issues. He'd had a tough childhood, and I knew he just couldn't deal with conflict at all. So if we ever had an argument or something, he would just get in his car and drive off. He would never resolve the conflict.
It's
Oh,
irritating, but
very
probably
irritating.
you just thought this is the way he is. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And so he would just drive off and then he'd come home late and I would ask him, where did you go? And he says, I just drove around or I went to a movie. What movie did you go to? I don't even remember. And I'm thinking, what? But then he would be a super good husband after that. And I thought, this is the way he apologizes. He never said anything regard to, I'm sorry. And now, of course, I know that's love
Yeah.
bombing, but he would
Yes.
just, and I thought, I'm just going to let it go. It's not worth the fight. Was he wrong? Yeah, he was wrong. Do I know he was wrong? Yeah, but now he's being a good guy and he's doing all the stuff I want him to. So I just let it go.
Yeah.
So was that an indication? Yeah, could have been, but it
Yeah,
was like,
but even 40 years ago, like you would never suspect your
oh,
husband
never.
had prostitutes or going to a strip club or watching porn, right? Like that
Never.
just isn't even in our
No.
frame of reference.
Never, never. When I finally started, the first night is when I got the most information out of him. Later on, he clammed up again. But yeah, this is stuff that happened. I said, what were you doing and when? And this is when my kids were like newborn and they're like in their 40s now. So I'm going, okay, this has been going on a long time.
Yeah, wow. Of course, the initial D-Day, did you just shut down? Did you go into
Yes.
fight? What was your response in those moments? Did you
It was
or just
originally just shutting down. Yeah, I
yeah.
just completely shut down. It was that first night. It's like I went into our bedroom, locked the door. He went to the guest room. And then I basically told him, I don't want to see you. I don't care where you go. He later on moved out, but there were a couple of weeks there where he hadn't. And I said, if I'm home, you're not. I can't even see you. Because I was honestly, that first night, I was afraid I was going to kill him.
Yeah.
Terrible. But
No,
I
it's
thought,
totally normal.
it's like I hear about women finding out about husbands and then there's a murder. And I thought, I get that now. You are so upset. You're
Yeah, or
so
we wanna
hurt.
Lorena Bobbitt him, right?
That is exactly what I thought.
Yes.
Where's the knives? I
Yeah.
honestly, I was literally going to,
Yeah, and the fact he put you in so much danger too. I
oh my
mean,
gosh.
it's amazing. I don't know if you do have an STD, but you totally could.
And that was another thing too. I was just in shock, and my kids go, "Mom, you got to go get tested." I go, "For what? I didn't do anything." I go, "Mom, you have to get tested." I go, "Holy crap!" It's so much humiliation, so much hurt, so much betrayal. You just honestly, I know why they have husbands separate from their wives because you could really do them damage because you're so angry.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're hurt, you want to hurt people emotionally, physically, right? Yeah. It's very intense. So, what do you think? Clearly, obviously, physically, there's a lot of impact, but don't you think the emotional
Oh my
impact
heavens.
is
Yeah, it was
really intense?
horrible. It
Yeah.
was horrible. Yeah. Before this happened, I would hear about people with PTSD and I'd think, I don't know. I think some people are milking it. I'm not sure that's reality. Oh my heavens. It is 100% real. You just cannot think. You cannot work. You cannot function. And your brain is just not engaged. You can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of fog. I know you talked about that a lot, having this fog and can't make a thought or make a decision. And you're just spinning in disbelief because I think it's the reality. I think reality is hard for people to finally accept our reality because we've planned this life. You've planned 40 years with this man, with this legacy of children and grandchildren and your future. And then your whole life
Yeah.
changes. So,
Yeah.
when did you know that you couldn't stay married, that you're like, I'm going to have to get divorced?
It's a really interesting question because I just couldn't even fathom the thought of divorce. I'm not the kind of person that gets divorced. We've worked through all this stuff. We've had hard things. I know there's things I'd gone through earlier that maybe other people would have checked out on and said, I'm gone. No, I'm not the kind of person that gets divorced. Our family is forever. We're staying together. But I was in such shock that first week. My two oldest kids came over and were sitting with me and they said, Mom, you have to let dad go. And this is after I'd made him go to each one of them. I said, you go confess to each one of these kids. You face them and you tell them what you did. They're all adults after that. And like I said, when my daughter mentioned, she said, Mom, he was even making up excuses when he was telling us what he'd done. She said, you have to let the man go. So it was basically my children were telling me, okay, this is over. I still couldn't really process that, but they just kept saying, Mom, you have to do it. And then a son-in-law who's financial wizard went into our finances and he said, oh my gosh, you've got to file. He's killing you financially, which I had no idea. And it sounds really ignorant of me, but we
This
got
is how
everything.
you did your finances, right? Just
Yeah,
trusted him.
I
Yeah.
did. I did. And he normally everything was fine. Everything got paid. And so they said, you've got to file. So I basically filed for divorce before I was even convinced that I should divorce. Is that crazy?
No, it's totally normal. I think it's hard. It's like a knowing, but then when the reality, it's like, I don't know if I can do this. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, it was exactly that.
yeah.
My husband is very ADHD. And
Mhm.
I thought, oh my gosh, he's never going to get out of this addiction. But I thought maybe if the fear of God is put into him and he realizes he's
Mhm.
losing his entire family, maybe we'll see a complete 180. And it never came. There was never even apology for anyone, not to me, not to the children. And it was like, okay, this says really who the man is.
Yes.
He's given
Yeah.
up. He's realized this is beyond me. I cannot cure myself of this. I
Mhm.
don't know that I want to cure myself of this.
Yeah.
And it's better just to let the family go. I think that's where he was.
Yeah, it's very common, right? And you think, really? You're willing to walk away from all of this? But,
Yeah.
and that's why addiction is so intense, right? Especially sexual addiction.
I really think he thought, and in fact, I know he thought that once we were divorced, that he and the kids would have a normal relationship.
Mhm.
No, that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think so many people think betrayal is between the husband and wife. He probably thought, I didn't betray my kids, but they still
He did.
betrayed.
Of
Totally
course he
did.
did.
Yeah.
He lied to them. He presented himself as something he was not. And
Yes.
yeah, no, my son was so hurt by it, so
Mhm.
hurt by it because after the divorce, his dad would just stop by and, "Well, how are things going?" And he said, every time you come by, Dad, his oldest daughter was old enough to know something had happened, that her grandfather had done something to her grandmother. And we're pretty close. And he said, she cries every time you come. She
Mhm.
cries. I can't have this. You can't be just walking into my house and just stopping by. So my son picked up and moved his family out of state,
Wow.
which was horrible for me because he was a wonderful
Yeah.
support to me. But he goes, I can't do this anymore. I cannot have this guy just showing up at my door. And I don't think he has any idea that's why his son moved.
Yeah, the thing is he had to do what was best for him and his
Of course.
yeah.
Yeah.
You are separated, working on deciding whether to get divorced. What did that period look like for you? Like, how did you start? Did you think I need to heal, or were you like, I don't know what I need to do? Or
I was in such a shock. Healing was not even a thought. I didn't think I could ever heal. It
yeah.
was so bad. I didn't think I could
Mm,
ever heal. My life was 100% invalidated. Two-thirds of my life had been with this man. And it was like, poof, it's gone. Everything I did was for nothing. Suicide crosses your mind. It really does. It's like, I don't even want to live anymore. For
mm,
why? My life is a waste.
mm.
Thankfully, I have children and parents. And of course, I didn't mention that to them. You can't do that to other people. But
Yeah.
the thought certainly does cross your mind, or it crossed mine.
Yeah, yeah. And so as you were struggling, you found yourself going maybe deeper into the pit of despair. What got you to pull yourself out of it? What helped? What did you do? What are someone's listening? What do you want them to hear?
Of course, I was talking to my daughters all the time, and I feel really bad about that. They're grown, they're married, they have children. It's not like they're kids, but they were the ones that knew their dad. They were the ones that knew how shocking this was. They were the ones that got it. And my oldest daughter, turned to me and she goes, Mom, you've got to talk to. And I had counselors. I had a counselor. She says, you've got to talk to someone else. You've got to get into a therapy group or something. And I thought,
Mhm.
there's no way I'm not doing that. But I did. I did.
Is it because you felt shame or you didn't want anyone to
Well,
know
it was
or
shame. And also, I knew the women in there would probably be in their 30s. And I
mm,
was in my 60s. And I thought, this pathetic old woman is
mm,
coming in there.
a lot of judgment?
Yes, having been ignorant for so long, I just couldn't do it. Anyway, but she said, you have to do it. And my counselor also recommended, she says, there's a group coming up here. And I thought, how old is everybody? And they said, we don't usually ask how old everyone is when they join. And I knew I'd be the oldest person there. And I was, but there was another grandma there. She was probably 15 years younger than I was, but she was a grandmother. So I thought, okay, she gets that third generation thing, that it's destroying generations. So that was a huge help to me, that there was someone that had a grandbaby that kind of got it. And it was that therapy group that really saved my life. It doesn't matter how old someone is, you go through this and you're going through exactly the same thing. Your feelings are all the same. It just evens out the playing field. We're all the same. Betrayal, we're all the same.
So maybe having that group, you realized it wasn't about the age, it was about the
Right.
emotions. Whether someone had been married for 3 years or 40 years, it's still pain.
The pain is still the same.
Yeah.
I was more of my life destroyed. Yeah, but I didn't have little children to worry about. Everybody, it balances out. There's so much difficulty at any stage of life when you go
And can
through
you
this.
imagine co-parenting with your husband?
Oh my gosh. I honestly,
Knowing he was going to strip clubs and hooking up with prostitutes and having to
it's
drop your 5 little babies off at that
oh my
house.
gosh, I can't even. It's funny. It's been 6.5 years now, and I still had a piece of his furniture. He had made a bookshelf in high school, and he made it. It was really well done. And every time I walked by that, I go, I got to get rid of that thing. And I liked the bookshelf. I wanted to keep it, but it's like, finally, I got rid of it like 3 weeks ago. I was like, okay, now I'm free. But
Oh, I love
it
that.
just keeps haunting you. Every time you see it, it brings back. Anyway, so
Yeah. So what helped you? What was the biggest thing? So obviously the group helped
yeah.
you. Most like
Therapy.
groups. Yeah,
Yeah,
therapy.
therapy. I was in therapy and I had an excellent therapist. Also, even therapy in the group, it wasn't enough. So I started therapeutic writing. And that's actually
Mhm.
how the book was born. I just started writing and writing. And I started, excuse me, an Instagram account just so I had a venue to share my writing. And I had a lot of women mention, oh my gosh, that's just how I felt. And then I'd share some of it with women in my group. And oh, they said, I felt exactly the same way. So one day I just sat up, I go, oh my gosh, you're going to write a book. So a lot of things that are in my book were just therapeutic writing at the time. So that's,
Yeah. And do you feel like it was healing for
oh
you?
my gosh, yes. I think you have, when betrayal is at the forefront of your mind and you have that constant rumination, you can't constantly be talking to a therapist or a child or a friend. You just can't constantly be talking to someone. But by writing, it's almost like I could write it and then put it on the shelf and it was out of my brain.
Yes.
And that helped me a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really powerful because if we leave it in our brain, it thinks, oh, this is important. You better think about it a little bit more.
Exactly. And it's awful because you can't really, I had to retire shortly thereafter after finding out because I couldn't do my job. I just couldn't think anymore.
So now, are you still retired or did you need to go back to work?
I am retired.
Mhm.
Thankfully, I had a job in education, so I had a pension. I have a pension, but I have gone back to work just part time. I can do some things online. So I was really blessed that our house was paid off and I did get the house in the divorce, which was a blessing. I can cover my basic bills, but if I ever
Mm.
want to do something, I need a little extra money. So I did go
Yeah.
back.
Are you glad you stayed in your house? That was a
Oh my
good thing
gosh.
for you.
What's funny, I was talking to another friend who was going through the same thing, and she had a fabulously gorgeous home. And she said, people think I want to stay in my house just because it's a big, beautiful home. She said, I just need to be safe, and I'm safe here. And I felt exactly the same way. My home is not a magnificent home, it's a regular people's home, but you could have
Mhm.
offered me a mansion, and I would not want to leave my house. I just needed to be
Well, it's
in my
good you
home.
felt safe, right? Because he did his activities outside the home, it sounds. But some of us, they bring the activities to the home,
Yeah.
and so it
I'm
doesn't
sure
feel as
that's
safe.
different. I'm sure that's different.
Yeah.
I know there was porn here in the house, which
Yeah.
disgusts me. But as
Mhm.
far as acting out other than that, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, cars are different. Found
Mhm.
out things he did in my car. Had a new car at that point when I figured it out. It was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a cleansing.
Just in my car.
Yeah, it's amazing the ability to compartmentalize and to justify and to rationalize that addiction.
Yeah.
People.
I thought a lot about, I don't think my husband was ever able to manage emotional pain.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever learned to do that. And that's why if we had a discussion or an argument, he had to leave. He just did not know what to do with emotional
Yeah,
pain.
and he used the prostitutes, the porn
Exactly.
to
To
make
numb.
himself feel better. Yeah.
And I think,
Yeah.
and that's the core issue. The core issue isn't
Yes.
as horrible as it is. The core issue is not the addiction. The core issue is you don't know how to deal with
Yes.
pain.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say it's a superpower. If you can learn to deal with negative emotions, you are way ahead of a lot of people. And learning to be okay with people feeling negatively, having a negative emotion, because it's human to have negative emotions. But for whatever reason, our brains, they feel very dangerous.
I remember when we were first married, we had a small discussion, disagreement, and he stopped and he said, we can't disagree with each other. We're married now. And I started laughing. I go, are you kidding? I said,
Yeah.
no, my parents never disagreed. I go, yeah, they did.
Yeah.
I said, maybe you didn't see it, but of course they disagreed. And coming
Yeah.
into marriage with that thought that we always had to be perfectly aligned and then we weren't, he couldn't deal with it.
Yeah, and it's such a false belief, right? It's a
Yeah.
false narrative and don't go to bed mad. There's a lot of bad marriage advice out there and
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely that's one that we can't
Yeah.
disagree with each other. It's actually healthy. We want to disagree. So then we don't want to marry someone just like us. But
Of course. That's
oh,
part of the
yeah,
growth of marriage, I think, is
it
expanding
is.
your philosophy of life and your what you think is important. I don't know. I just died when he said that. I go, you gotta be kidding.
Like you're married the wrong girl here.
We had a problem.
Yeah, but the thing is, we didn't know back then questions to ask and all this. I do love the internet for this reason because all the knowledge, and you probably watching Instagram posts, and people could look at your posts and get comfort and hope from that. I love the title of your book. What caused you to write Hope Rises.
First of all, wouldn't you know, 3 months after my book came out, Baldacci publishes a book, Hope Rises. I go, seriously, buddy? You're not even the same genre. Why are you putting that? Anyway, you have to put Hope Rises, KB Adamson, and you'll never find it on
Okay.
Amazon. So it was interesting. I had, I don't want to call it a vision, dream. You know, when you're meditating, sometimes just ideas will come into your head. And this was right when I was in the thick of within that first year. And I saw myself, I was a balloon in this vision I had during this meditative moment. And there was my husband, and he was also a balloon, and he was a dark balloon, and I was a bright balloon. And we were all tangled together. And then all of a sudden, I just got loose. And I looked at his balloon, and he had one of those balloon weights on it. And I mentioned it to my counselor. I go, and she says, what you're saying is that his addiction was holding him down, but you're not addicted. You can get out. You can get away from that. So to me, it was rising hope. It was this
Yeah.
balloon.
Very symbolic, right?
Yeah, it was. So that was where it came from. Anyway,
Yeah, no, I love it. It's like this freedom that you could just let yourself
I'm
like
not the
flow
one
out.
that's tied
Yeah.
down to this horrible addiction. That's not me.
Yeah. So you've been divorced for 6.5 years. I heard you.
Yeah.
What do you think what have you learned in those 6.5 years? I know you've learned a lot, but what's one lesson, like from where you were on D-Day to where you are now? Where do you see your biggest strength or growth happening?
First of all, I wrote a book, which I
That's
didn't ever.
amazing. There's not many people that have written books, and that's
I'd always wanted
big
to.
too.
I think it propelled me to write the book
Mhm.
because there were so many ideas in my head and I just needed to get them out. And also, I looked for people like you desperately when I first went through this. Found a few podcasts. I don't know, were you even around 6.5 years ago? I don't think you were.
No, I think my podcast started 5 years ago.
Yeah. So those first years, I was desperate to
Yeah.
find things and find books. And it seemed like every book I read was like, well, maybe it's from a counselor. I wanted someone who had gone through the hell of
Yeah.
it and could explain this is what you're going to go through and this is how you get out of it. Anyway, so that happened. I got the book. Another thing is I didn't ever think I'd be happy again. Really happy, but I am. I didn't want to be happy because I'm divorced, but no, you can still be really happy and not have exactly the kind of life you thought you'd have.
Yeah, I think it's so true. I'm like you. I don't really identify as divorced. I mean, I am, but I'm like, but it just never, I don't really ever present myself that way. But it can. And divorce actually to not have that, even though for you, you didn't know about it until the very end, it's now that to have to be laying next to him every night would just be your nervous system would have never probably been able
Oh,
to.
no. Well, it's interesting now. I think, oh my gosh, that was that. There were things in our marriage or in our family that just an oppressive feel. About, oh gosh, 15, 20 years ago, I went through some really deep depression and I didn't know what. We'd had a financial crisis and then gotten out of it. But so I thought that's what it was. And I realized now, no.
Yeah.
When the financial crisis hit, he went way into his addiction.
Yes.
Of course, because he
Yeah.
can't deal with negative emotions. And so that's what I was feeling. And it was like, I feel so bad because I had kids still in high school and junior high at that time. And those kids said, you were a rotten mom. Because I would come home and just go to bed crying because
Yeah.
I was so depressed about the situation. But I don't think it was the financial that was.
Yeah, your body was picking up on something else. Clearly, I think our bodies are very intuitive, but you had no idea. And
I
now
had no
you know,
idea.
and I
Yeah.
think now your kids know.
Yeah.
So can you have so much compassion for your past self yet?
I do now. I'm hoping my poor kids can forgive me for being a crappy mom there for a few years. It was hard because it was
Yeah.
when kids are in junior high, they need a really good mom then. And I just was not. And my poor daughter, my oldest daughter was getting married. I was not happy. It was just like,
Yeah, I bet she can. That's a beautiful thing I love. I've been able to do a lot of repair with my kids because I knew about their dad cheating on me and I stayed and I didn't realize back then no one talked about your nervous system. I was very emotionally numb and I didn't realize it because I'm like, I'm not staying in bed. I'm doing all the things. So I think once everything comes to light, I think repair is always possible.
I'm hoping. I think it really damaged them since the kids didn't know about their dad. And of course, I didn't either at that time. They didn't really know what it was that
Yeah. But
I
don't
was
you think
going
now
through.
that they know they can, I don't know.
I'm
Yeah.
hoping, but still, it was their poor little lives in junior high that I probably
Yeah. And
destroyed for them.
you didn't destroy it. It just was your situation.
Yeah, I know now.
Yeah. And
Anyway,
sadly, we can't change our past, but
no, we can't,
well,
unfortunately.
Cass, I'm so glad that we connected. We connected through your daughter. So thank you, daughter. And I'm glad that I got to meet you.
Oh, there was one other thing I was going to mention. Do you mind if
Oh,
I
yes.
add that right now? You asked me, she said, what do you wish people understood about betrayal trauma?
Yes.
And I hope they understand that it is worse than a death in the family.
Mm.
Because a death, if you're in a loving relationship and someone dies, that is so heart-wrenching.
Yes.
But it was a loving relationship. In betrayal, it's a death of a relationship and the person still exists. And then you realize that they were never. And I've thought 100 times, if you're a Christian believer and you believe that in the next life you'll be together, if you're blind in the next life you'll be able to see, every illness will be corrected. But if you're in a betrayal situation, that relationship was really never completely true. Have that relationship again because it never existed. At least it didn't exist how you thought it existed. So it's a complete loss. That's why I think it's worse than death. Anyway.
Yeah, I am with you. And I've said that many times because someone dies, people are bringing you casseroles
Oh,
and
absolutely.
dinner. And then you find out your husband had an affair and you're getting divorced and no one talks to you.
Exactly.
And it just is awkward. And people don't know what to say. Oh, my husband was hooking up with prostitutes. And they're like, what?
Yeah, I was going to say, in my case, the in-laws were horrible,
Mhm.
horrible. I didn't do anything. And of course,
Yeah.
I'm sure he
Well,
went to,
because they don't want to admit that their son did this.
yeah,
It's surely you're crazy, Cass.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I'm
Yeah, that
so
was hard. That was really
yeah.
hard. It was just like, no one talks to me. And I go, I didn't do anything wrong. Well,
Yeah.
obviously,
Do you want to talk to them? Would you want a relationship or are you
yeah,
like, okay,
it's the first year there was absolutely almost nothing. Somebody told me, oh, you need to go to a counselor. And someone else said, you need to forgive him. And I thought, oh, forgive him? You don't
yeah.
even say that F word till maybe
Yeah.
5 years down there. Yes,
Mhm.
don't even say that word. So they did say a couple of things. No one ever came to visit me. It was a text or an email. You should forgive him, or we don't want to be involved, or something like that. And then a year later, they'd send me a Christmas card. And I'm going, are you kidding? If he had died, would you have come over?
It sounds like his family didn't cope well with anything negative. And so they just swept it under the rug and we don't talk about this.
What I found out since then is this addiction is rampant in the family. So I think there's a lot of shame, a lot of
Yeah.
humiliation. And it's just, oh, shoot, she's the one that blabbed it. Everyone else, the wife
Mm.
stayed and just didn't say anything. But this girl cut it off. And now it's out
Mm.
in the open. So
Proud of you. You go, girl.
I don't know. I don't feel very proud of myself. But anyway,
I think you did something really hard, and it is hard to leave a 40-year marriage.
oh my
And
gosh.
some people, they don't want to choose that hard. And so you chose the harder hard, maybe. I don't know. We don't know because you didn't stay, but you
Oh
chose
no.
something really hard. And I think we need to be so proud of you. I want you to be so proud. And you wrote a book, which is really awesome
Thank you.
to
Thank you.
help.
Well, I really think it's harder in a situation like that to stay. I really do. As hard as it is to leave, you have got to have freedom and you've got to have integrity in your life and you've got to feel like you're living a life of truth. And there's not a life of truth if you're living with a liar.
Yes. And yeah, and some people can repent and change and have remorse, but it sounds like he was not willing to.
No,
So,
and I think I'm going to end with something
yeah.
Jordan Peterson said. He said, the remorse has to be as deep as the betrayal. And if it is not, then there's no need to stay because
Yeah.
they won't change.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Cass, thanks so much for coming on my podcast. And so remember, you can find your book on Amazon. Is that right?
That's correct.
And it's called Hope Rises, KB Adamson. And if we want to follow you on Instagram, are you still on Instagram or no?
I haven't been very active lately. I'm
It's okay.
beautifulwarriors.rise, Rizse, not Z-E, rise.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. I wish you the best and I hope everyone enjoyed listening. Please share it with anyone that might need to hear this message of hope and have a beautiful day. And I will talk to you next week. Bye bye.